Every night at exactly 3:13 a.m., someone knocked on Daniel Harper's front door. Not once, not twice, but every single night for 7 straight days. And the worst part was, when he finally checked the security camera, there was no one there. Daniel had just moved into a small rental house on the outskirts of a quiet town in Ohio. It wasn't the kind of place people dreamed about. The paint was chipped, the wooden floor creaked with every step, and the backyard stretched into a dark patch of trees that locals simply called Black Hollow. Still, Daniel didn't mind. He was 29, recently divorced, and desperate for a fresh start. A quiet house, cheap rent, and no neighbors close enough to ask questions felt exactly like what he needed. On his first night in the house, Daniel stayed up late unpacking boxes. By the time he finally lay down in bed, it was already after 2:30 in the morning. The house was silent. No traffic, no voices, no wind. Just that heavy kind of silence that feels unnatural, like the whole world is holding its breath. Then, suddenly, 3 sharp knocks echoed through the house. Daniel's eyes snapped open. He reached for his phone and checked the time. 3:13 a.m. He sat up in bed and listened. Nothing. For a few seconds, he wondered if he had imagined it. Maybe the wood was settling. Maybe a branch had hit the side of the house. Then it came again, 3 knocks, slower this time. He got out of bed and walked carefully down the hallway, his heart pounding harder with every step. When he reached the front door, he looked through the peephole. No one. The porch was empty. The street beyond it was dark and still. He opened the door and cold air rushed in, but there was nobody there. No footsteps, no car pulling away, no movement anywhere in sight. He stood there for a moment, staring into the darkness, then locked the door and returned to bed. He barely slept the rest of the night. The next morning, he mentioned it to the landlord over the phone. The old man went quiet for a second, then laughed and said it was probably just bored kids playing tricks. Daniel didn't fully believe him, but he let it go. Until the second night. Again, Daniel woke to the same sound. 3 knocks. He looked at the clock. 3:13 a.m. This time he didn't move right away. He just sat in the dock, staring toward the bedroom door. A full minute passed. Then another 3 knocks echoed through the house. Slow, heavy, patient. Daniel grabbed a baseball bat he kept near the wall and made his way to the front door. He looked through the peephole. Nothing. He yanked the door open. Again, nobody. But this time something was different. On the welcome mat, there was mud, not just a little, a thick trail of wet, dark mud leading up to the porch, stopping right in front of the door. There were no footsteps leading away. Daniel stared at it, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Then he looked out toward the yard. Beyond the porch light, the darkness seemed thicker than it should have been, like something was standing just outside the edge of the light, waiting for him to notice. He slammed the door shut and locked it. The next day, he bought a security camera. If someone was messing with him, he wanted proof. That night, he set it up facing the front porch, checked the battery twice, and went to bed with his phone in his hand. At 3:13 a.m., the knocking came again. Daniel jumped up, opened the camera app, and looked at the live feed. The porch was empty, but the knocking was still happening. He stared at the screen while the sound echoed through the house in real time. Then the camera glitched. The image flickered into static for half a second, and when it returned, there was a figure standing at the far end of the porch. Tall, thin, completely still. Its face was too dark to make out. Daniel froze. The figure didn't move. It didn't step forward. It just stood there, staring at the house. Then his phone screen suddenly went black, battery dead. That was impossible. It had been nearly full. He didn't sleep at all after that. In the morning, he checked the recording. At first, everything looked normal. An empty porch, a still yard, nothing unusual. Then, exactly at 3:13 a.m., the footage distorted. Lines of static ripped across the screen, and for just 3 frames, less than a second in total, the figure appeared. When Daniel paused the video and zoomed in, his stomach dropped. The thing on the porch wasn't facing the house. It was facing the camera and smiling. That same afternoon, Daniel drove into town and stopped at a small diner. He asked the waitress if she knew anything about the house or the woods behind it. Her face changed immediately. She leaned closer and lowered her voice. "You're in the Hollow House?" Daniel frowned. "The Hollow House?" She nodded.
Then an older man sitting at the counter turned around and looked at him straight. "You hearin' knocks?" Daniel didn't answer. He didn't need to. The old man sighed and stared down into his coffee. He said there used to be a family living out there many years ago, a husband, a wife, and a little boy. People said the father changed after they moved in. He stopped going to work, stopped talking to neighbors, and told anyone who would listen that somebody kept knocking on the door every night.
Daniel felt his mouth go dry. "What happened to them?" he asked. The old man looked up slowly. One morning, the wife and son were gone. No signs of a struggle, no note, no trace. 3 days later, they found the father hanging from a tree in Black Hollow. Daniel tried to laugh, but the sound came out thin and weak. "So what, you think some ghost is knocking on my door?" The old man shook his head. "No," he said quietly. "I think whatever knocked on his door got invited in." Daniel left the diner immediately. That night he packed a bag. He didn't care anymore if the story was true. He didn't care if he lost his deposit. He just wanted out. But before leaving, he told himself he needed one last thing: proof. He set up his phone to record from inside the living room, aimed directly at the front door. Then he sat on the couch with his car keys in one hand and the baseball bat in the other. The digital clock on the TV stand read 3:12 a.m. That had changed. 3:13. 3 knocks shook the door. Not loud this time. Soft. Almost polite. Daniel stared at the door and didn't move. Then came a voice from the other side. A man's voice. Low. Weak. Barely above a whisper. "Please, let me in." Daniel's entire body went cold. He knew that voice. It sounded exactly like his own. He backed away from the door. The voice came again, even softer this time. "Daniel." Then the doorknob started turning, slowly, carefully, but the door was locked. Daniel grabbed his keys and ran for the back entrance. As he reached the kitchen, every cabinet door flew open at once. The lights above him exploded in a shower of sparks and glass. From the front of the house, he heard the unmistakable sound of the door creaking open. He didn't stop to look. He ran outside, jumped into his car, and sped down the dirt road without turning back. By sunrise, he was 20 miles away, hiding in a highway motel room. He stayed there until noon, trying to convince himself it was over. Eventually, with shaking hands, he checked the phone recording from the living room. At 3:13 a.m., the video captured the knocks, then the whisper, then the sound of the lock clicking open by itself. The front door slowly swung inward, but nobody came in. For nearly 10 seconds, the doorway remained empty. Then the camera adjusted to the darkness inside the house, and Daniel saw it. Something was already inside, standing silently in the hallway behind the couch where he had been sitting, watching him the entire time, waiting for him to notice. The figure was impossibly tall, its limbs bent at angles that didn't look human. Its grin stretched too wide across a face that looked almost normal from a distance, but wrong in every way that mattered. It stood there without moving, as if it had been inside the house long before the knocking ever started. Then, in the final seconds of the recording, the thing leaned toward the camera and whispered, "You left before I could knock from inside." The video ended there. Daniel never went back for his belongings. The landlord refused to discuss the house, and within a month the property was listed again. Fresh paint, lower rent, no mention of what happened there. And every now and then, Daniel still wakes up in the middle of the night and checks the time before he even opens his eyes all the way. Because deep down, he already knows what he's going to see. 3:13 a.m. And somewhere, very far away, someone is still knocking.